SBR Videos is sponsored by Sports Cash System. Click on the link below for more information. SBR Foreign Videos, I'm Peter Loshak. The 2013 NBA regular season is just around the corner. It starts next week. Preseason is winding down this week. And so right now we're going to talk to professional NBA handicapper Anthony from SweetJones55.com. I'm going to ask him a few questions, kind of pick his brain to figure out, to learn a little bit about what he does and how he goes about finding edges in NBA betting. Anthony, thanks for being back with us.
Hi, Peter. Thanks for having me.
All right, so before we get into specific questions, find out what your methods are, just chat a little bit about value with NBA lines. Give a plug for your website. Tell us, how you started and what your record is since you've been doing this.
For the first 2 years, I posted on SBR. My user was SweetJones55, and that's the name of my website, SweetJones55.com. I hit 60% those first 2 years, and over the last 4 years in the NBA, I've been able to maintain a 58.2% win rate. Last season, I netted 24 units and I hit 59%, and I hope the NBA season's as good as the past.
All right, well, hey, listen, upper 50s in, on 7 to 10 plays a week in a major market is very, very impressive. So in general, what kinds of things do you look at? We've got the, what's your approach? How would you define your approach? We've got the regular season starting next week. So, what are you doing right now? And what kind of things are you going to be looking for in, let's say the first few weeks?
Well, right now I've been watching all of the preseason games, mainly like the first quarters and the third quarters, because that's like when the starting fives are in for both teams, and just trying to see what teams are doing. There's a bunch of new coaches this year in the NBA, so I'm really trying to read all the articles. I'm trying to watch all the coach interviews. I'm trying to see how the coaches plan on using their teams and what offensive and defensive strategies they're going to use, and that's basically what I've been doing lately. In terms of me finding edges in the NBA, I really think it just comes down to the fact that I watch every single game. So in a night, I obviously can't watch every game in one night, but I record the games and I watch all of them.
Wow.
And I think being able to watch every game probably is what gives me the biggest edge, because you get a very, very good feel for teams and what they're going to do on a nightly basis when you're always watching them. And in the NBA season, it's a long 82-game season, and there's bound to be ups and downs for teams. So I think you really need to look into the seasons within season for each NBA teams. Teams are bound to go on ups and downs, and it's a roller coaster season. So being able to understand when a team is peaking and about to go down, or being able to understand when a team is maybe reaching the bottom point, or the team's basically as bad as they can get, they can only go up. And being able to figure that out, will lead you to high value picks. If a team's just way overachieving, the lines are going to be overvalued. You can start to go against them. And if a team is way underachieving, then most likely there's going to be value on those teams, and then you can get in on that. An example of this would be like if a mediocre team, maybe over a 5-game stretch, shoots 45% from three, and they go 5-0, the league average is 35%. So it's safe to say they won't be doing this for the next 5 games. So there'll likely be value in those games against them in the next upcoming games after that. And with a team underachieving, I think, like I talked about, watching the player and coach interviews, when a team is on downswing, you can really feel from watching those player and coach interviews and listening if they are really trying to get things going, or if they're really down themselves and there's just no hope. So I think, basically just that. I mean, you have to be on top of the league at all times. You got to really eat, breathe, and sleep basketball. There is no secret. You got to be on top of it.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And it sounds like you're looking for edges that can't be factored into the models that determine the lines for the market, or at least can't be easily factored in.
Yeah, I do look at all the stats. I don't only just look at these subjective things. Sure. I do look at all the stats. And, I look at all the sports synergy, all the percentages. I look at all that. But I really think that my edge is really from eye gain and from actually watching the games. And I think you do, like I said, you need to know those stats. That's like a foundation. That's just that's kind of like a prerequisite, I would say. Just like understanding the trends, understanding the situations, understanding the matchups. You need to know all of that also. But I really think that when you watch every game, that's when you really start to be able to see when there's value on a game. Like, most people are usually very, very good at wagering on games with their teams that they watch all the time. So if you watch every team, then you're going to have a good feel basically in every game.
I noticed that, when I first started out, I definitely noticed that. I noticed it in myself, and I noticed it with other people, and it's absolutely, I completely agree with you with that. If there's like a homer who has an opinion on a game, obviously a homer who knows what he's talking about, not some homer idiot, but if there's a homer who has, an opinion on his home team and, gives a few reasons why, I always trust that opinion almost more than any other opinion that there is out there. All right, so share with us your thoughts on, the ebbs and flows of the season. Do you find that the markets are in general, a little bit more or less beatable in the first third of the season, the middle, or the end, or does it really depend?
I would say the NBA is definitely the most beatable early in the year.
Okay.
And it's because the lines makers, they have no data to look at when it comes to making up the lines early in the year. They can look at last year's data, but a lot of times that won't translate into next season because the players change, there's trades, free agency, there's new coaches. So a lot of that data is basically useless. So they're in a way kind of wigging it with a lot of the games. And once you get to the middle of the year, they now have all this data that they can use to make better lines, and then it gets much more difficult. And then for me personally, there's some NBA handicappers that do well that don't handicap playoffs. For me, I actually have noticed that I do actually better in playoffs, and I think that has come down to the fact that in the playoffs, I never have to estimate motivation.
Right.
All the teams are going to give 100%, close to 100%, less like the series or something like 3-0. But for the most part, the teams are going to give it their all every night. And when I don't have to figure out that variable, I feel like it helps me out. And then I also think in the playoffs, matchups are big. In the regular season, the matchups aren't as important. But in a playoff series, the matchups and the coaching, it really comes into play a factor in the playoffs. And I think that's another reason why I do well in playoffs. So.
All right, well, this has been a very illuminating call, Anthony, from SweetJones55.com. You definitely sound like you do your homework, which is the most important thing, basically in anything in life. Whether it's sports betting or whatever, doing your homework is the most important thing. I remember when I first started doing calls with you, that was a nickname I was going to give you, homework. Homework from SweetJones55.com. Thanks so much for sharing all this info with us, and I hope to do more calls with you for the rest of the regular season.